I'm going to go pick up my best friend from the airport. He's gonna be pissed because I'm gonna be late, but guess what? It's a free ride, so he can't really complain about that too much. And maybe I'll bring him a burger too. We'll see. But I'm gonna take Gypsy out. I can't do any pulls because I'm actually having a lot of trouble with her, and I'll explain. It's okay, you're still perfect, girl. But Wednesday, we're gonna take everything apart, look at everything, get into the engine a little bit, and get it knocked out. Alright, let's go. He's waiting on me. Alright guys, so I'm back in my hometown, Wickenburg, Arizona. Just dropped my buddy off. Got about a 2-hour drive back to the city. And the reason I'm making this video is because honestly, a huge misunderstanding that cost me like 2 hours of Google research, pouring through every VQ, 350Z, 370Z, G35, 370, Infiniti, Nissan forum to get the answers for. When in reality, the answer is super simple. So, as you know, I wanted to do the spark plugs on my car. So yesterday, I went to a bunch of places to pick up the plugs. No one had them, right? Yeah. So we ended up ordering them, ordered copper plugs from Rock Auto, and they should be here Wednesday, which is awesome because I got a lot of other work to do on Wednesday, so it should be like a garage day, which I'm super psyched for. I got my buddy coming over, and we're gonna work on the cars. Here's the problem. I checked the heat range from the manufacturer, and Infiniti G35s come with NGK Iridium plugs from the manufacturer, the VQ HR engines. The DE engines use different plugs. Now, the VQ37 VHR engines also use different plugs, right? So now you can see why this is like getting to be a little tricky. So I went ahead and I picked up plugs that were manufacturer heat range of 8. Not realizing that the manufacturer heat range on this is 7s. So I kind of started to freak out a little bit because I was like, if anything, I'm going to go colder on plugs. I'm not going to go hotter. Like, no one goes hotter on spark plugs unless you have a bad engine and you're burning oil. The only reason to go hotter is to make up for lost compression so that your plugs don't foul up, so they can burn off the extra gunk, carbon, I guess. But you go colder, that way you don't get pre-detonation. You get better performance out of it. You can push the engine harder and not experience knock. Also, pulls some of the heat out of that cylinder. So obviously I'm going to go with colder plugs if I'm going to change the heat range. And the regulars were 7s, and these ones were 8s. So I was kind of like, here we go. I'm going to have to send this back, try to find the other plugs. Maybe I'll just buy, maybe I'll just pay the money, just go to the dealer and get stock plugs. I heard the G37 uses colder plugs from the factory than the 35. So I'm doing research, and then I realized that the Bosch plugs are 6s for the same car. And I started to wonder, I'm like, what's going on here? Turns out, the heat manufacturer rating is not the same scale among the different manufacturers of spark plugs. So every manufacturer has their own scale for measuring heat rating. Here's where it gets really tricky. These ones are a 9 on Iridium NGKs, but with NGK plugs, the higher the number, the colder the plug. On Champion plugs and Bosch plugs, the higher the number, the hotter the plug. So not only are you dealing with a different base point number, so this one takes 9s on NGKs, 8s on Champions, 6s on Bosches, also takes 7s on NGKs, 8s on Champions, 6s on Bosches, and then it takes 9 on Denso. So yeah. No, 8 on Denso. Yeah, sorry. So it takes 8 on Champion and Denso. We'll get this right. Don't worry. I'm having some struggling here. 8 on Champion and Denso. 6s on Bosches. 7s on NGKs. Yeah. That's that took me way too long, guys. I'm so sorry. But anyway, either way, the higher is the lower, and the lower is the higher, and it's awfully confusing. So when you go to buy spark plugs, so look up what the car takes. They can look it up in the catalog. But don't be worried about the number actually being slightly different than what your stock plugs are, because different brands run with different sets of numbers. You want to find out what your car takes with that brand and then adjust hotter or colder from there, which might be lower and or higher depending on whether the brand goes up as it gets colder or down as it gets colder. So yeah, so that was my experience. That's what I learned. It took me 2 hours of Googling the forums to basically give you that info there, just right off the bat. So basically, you just experienced 2 hours of searching forums for some spark plug questions that are pretty basic and that every car enthusiast should probably know. I just never had to do spark plugs before, so I never really got into it. Another thing you want to check is the spark plug gap. Spark plug, each engine has its own gap that it needs for the spark plug. This is different than the heat range. It doesn't do the same thing as the heat range, but basically if the gap is too big, the plug won't fire. If the gap is too small, it won't produce a very large ignition flame, apparently. I didn't do as much research on the gap, but that's basically the long and short of it right there from what I found out. It also has something to do with the how hot it'll get. If it's too short, it could reach a melting point. So you want to make sure they're properly gapped for your vehicle. This car, the G35s take a 0.044 spark plug gap. So, for instance, a lot of people recommended using the GTR R35 spark plugs for the G35s and the G37s. However, those aren't gapped the correct amount for these engines, so I don't think. I mean, you could try it, I guess. A couple of different sources said it would work, but I don't think it would give you the best performance, just because they're not properly gapped for the engine. The only reason it might be beneficial is because they are a little bit colder. They're a colder plug. But like again, those are still iridium plugs, and I'm really trying to run copper plugs for the extra performance. I clocked my G35 at, and right now, I got a major problem. Like, alright guys, so I actually have major problems with my G35 right now. I can't do pulls, I can't race anybody. If I lined up against a 3.5 Mustang, I could probably beat it, but honestly, I'd have to push my engine a little bit harder. Sorry, 3.5 Charger. I'd have to really push. I'm struggling over here. I'm trying to concentrate. I'm driving tonight. Anyway, the idea is that like my engine is misfiring on one of its cylinders. 1.5 cylinders actually. One cylinder is not firing. So I'm a G35 with a 5-cylinder engine right now, and the other cylinder is intermittently firing, which is causing it to be really rough. So basically, I am a 4.5 cylinder G35 right now. You can spy the check engine code right there. And I've been resetting the code constantly with my dash command, but honestly at this point it's been coming on like every 30 miles or less. So I'm not going to reset it. I'm just going to leave it for now. I'm going to limp in it. I haven't taken it over 5,000 RPM because I don't want to screw anything up. Now I am running super lean, so my air fuel ratios on this car, I'm running 15 to 1, 14.6 to 15 to 1, which is insane. Most people are running these cars at 12 to 13 to 1. So I'm running very lean, but lean is mean. Lean burns hot, and you get things like failed spark plugs, burnt valves, that kind of thing. But you also get things like, I'll show you the video for my dash command stats. 458 foot-pounds of engine torque hitting the torque sensor at the transmission. So my dash command will pick up all the maxes, max acceleration, max horsepower. It calculates horsepower by RPM times engine torque. There's a calculation you can do for horsepower. There's no sensor for horsepower, but there's a sensor for torque at the transmission that can tell how much torque is hitting the transmission. So 458 foot-pounds of torque coming out of a G35. I am really not concerned about a few spark plugs burning out. I will replace the spark plugs. I'll get back at it. Right now, I'm probably lucky if I'm even making 300 horsepower. Now, I mean, stock, the car is over 300, so I'm probably making like 200, 250 horsepower right now. It's like I'm just kind of limping around until Wednesday to get these things changed. I cannot race I cannot do pulls. I can't go over 5,000 RPM. It's kind of a problem. And my O2 sensors are also failing, which is lovely, my upstream ones. So I ordered new ones. They'll also be here on Wednesday. So Wednesday we'll do the O2 sensors and then the spark plugs. The O2 sensors were also really expensive. So all that's a lot of money, but it's gonna be worth it to get everything up and going. All right, guys. Yeah, let's go to Wickenburg and we'll continue. Alright, so I dropped him off. I'm gonna grab some sleep and upload this video for you guys. It was really cool. I ran into, at QT at the gas station, I ran into a modified Jenny, and I grabbed some side-by-sides. I got them, I'll post them right here. Really cool guy. Talked to the owner for a bit. It was just, I love just meeting other random car guys out and about, you know? Especially import guys. Yeah, basically only import guys. Alright. Take care, like and subscribe. Catch you guys tomorrow, I guess.